Scarlett's talk today is titled Choose Love Movement. Be part of the solution. Building a culture of love, resilience, forgiveness, and connection in our communities at a time when it's needed most. I hope you had a chance to read the in-depth article about Scarlett in today's Daily. Thank you to Deb Treffs for her excellent write-up. I don't know if Deb is here, but anyway, there she is. She's excellent. Thank you. Scarlett Lewis founded the nonprofit Jessie Lewis Choose Love movement after her 6-year-old son's murder in Sandy Hook tragedy in 2012. The movement's Choose Love program for schools is a no-cost, comprehensive, lifespan, next generation, SEL and character development program that empowers educators and students to choose love, to handle adversity, and manage their emotions. The Choose Love programs extend into homes, communities, athletics, and the workplace, and has been assessed in 50 states and over 120 countries and by more than 11,000 schools. Scarlett is a non-stop champion for love and has been named one of the most outstanding female social entrepreneurs, leaders, and scientists and creators making their biggest impact after age 50. She has earned over 20 awards for her work and at least 6 in 2019 alone. For example, her work as an architect of change, her awards include the Common Ground Award and Hero of Forgiveness honor in 2014, the Character and Courage Award in 2018, and the Global Presence Humanitarian, Charles Elliott, and Mindful Family Awards in 2019, and the Unsung Hero and Peace Hero Awards in 2020. Scarlett has so much wisdom to share with us today, so I will let her tell you more as she speaks about her journey and the lessons learned. On behalf of the Chautauqua Women's Club and the entire Chautauqua community, Scarlett, we are honored to have you with us. Ladies and gentlemen, let's give a warm Chautauqua welcome to Scarlett Lewis. I'll move this. Is this it? Is that your purse? Thank you. Thanks.
Good afternoon. It is a huge honor to be here. In fact, it's the first time that I have ever been at Chautauqua. I've been saying it all day. It's absolutely beautiful. What an honor and pleasure for me to be here. So thanks. And I take every opportunity to share my story. I'm going to go over a little bit of my story today, but mostly I'm going to be talking about what I've learned through my experience. When you think about how you grow as a human being, it's usually through difficulty, challenges, roadblocks, pain, suffering, sometimes even tragedy. And so, as you can imagine, I've grown a lot in the last 10 years, and I am thrilled to be able to share my knowledge with you all. And so this chapter in my story started 10 years ago, December 14th, 2012, with the Sandy Hook tragedy. Jessie was one of 20 6-year-olds and 6 educators that were massacred that day in 2 first-grade classrooms alongside 6 educators, so a total of 6 people. You know, I said actually from day one that it was a total of 28 people. And hey, Brett, glad you made it. That wasn't that popular because I included Adam Lanza, the former student of Sandy Hook Elementary School, as well as his mother. But I want to explain why I did that. You know, I really, following the tragedy, took a step back, took a deep breath, and started watching the reactions. And there was a lot of anger, a lot of hatred, a lot of revenge thoughts and blame, as you can imagine. I'm sure that if you read about it and you experienced it with us, you felt those things as well. And a lot of the blame went towards Adam Lanza, who was the former student who actually attended first grade in those classrooms, and his mother, who had given him access to the guns. Lots of blame, of course. And did they make mistakes? Absolutely. Is Adam Lanza responsible for what happened that day? 100%. But giving all the blame to them didn't work for me. Because I thought, wait a minute, if it really is all Adam Lanza and his mother's fault that this happened today at Sandy Hook Elementary School, this tragedy, then it would never have happened before. And it would never have happened again. But we've had over 350 school-related shootings since Sandy Hook Elementary. In fact, it's our normal. I know for the first maybe 7 years, I used to call it our new normal. It was certainly a new normal for me because I was so aware of it, but I can't say that anymore. It's just our normal. And the amazing thing is, every school shooting is 100% preventable. So I decided to take my part of the responsibility. And I remember when I did that, I was on the phone with a reporter, and my mom was standing next to me. It was the first interview that I gave. And I said, I take my part of the responsibility for what happened to my son in his school, in my community. And I got off the phone and my mom said, it's actually the only thing that my mom and dad agreed on in 30 years, they're divorced, is that I should never say that it was my responsibility. But I said, I don't see anybody else taking responsibility for what's happening. And it is in my community. No, I never crossed paths with Adam Lanza that I know of, but I know now, especially now, how powerful we all are as individuals. Every single thought that we have that impacts how we feel, that then is translated in our actions, our behaviors, how we show up in our relationships, that ripples out. And it is our responsibility. So I say that the Choose Love movement, to give a little bit of history, started at Jesse's funeral because I got up to speak. And I remember standing next to that little white casket. You never think about things like that. It was really hard, and I gave myself an out, but I thought that I would take the opportunity that day to address the congregation, hundreds and hundreds of people that had traveled from all over, lining the walls of the church and out the front door. And I said, this whole tragedy started with an angry thought in Adam Lanza's head, because everything starts with a thought in our head. And I said, the amazing thing is, a thought can be changed. And at that time, I didn't know all of the neuroscience behind the power of our thoughts. I didn't understand our negative bias. I didn't realize, that's probably Jesse, I know, thank you, all right. That's funny, all right. I didn't realize that the majority of our thoughts are negative every day. Every single one of us is born with a negative bias. This is our brain's way of keeping us safe. It's not a bad thing. But the outcome of it is that between 70 to 80% of the tens of thousands of thoughts that we have every day are negative. And over 95% of our thoughts are repetitive. So if you have constant, roiling, negative thoughts that sometimes spiral, it's normal. That's how we're created. Our brain's #1 job is to keep us safe. So if you go back to caveman times, it was the caveman that was scanning for a saber-toothed tiger. That was the caveman that was going to live to pass down his genes. Today, and you might argue with me, we don't have saber-toothed tigers. So what do we focus on? Negativity. And we do. And all we need is to be aware of this, to use it to our benefit. You know those negative thoughts that go through your head? Oh, you're not worthy. You're not good enough. 85% of Americans lack self-esteem, and some of it is because of how we talk to ourselves. What are those thoughts? Are they trolls? No, that's our brain's way of keeping us safe. And if you know that, you can talk back to it. You can take control over it. You can say, thank you, brain. Thank you, brain. But I got this. I'm all right. That's your brain's way of limiting what you do, limiting who you are. Because the bigger you get, the more pain might come in your way. And your brain doesn't want you to feel pain physically, mentally, or emotionally. And here's the problem. We all have an amygdala, which is our fear center. We all have a prefrontal cortex, which is where our logic and reasoning reside, our executive functioning, our brake on our fear center. But all of the information that we get from our environment that comes into us from our 5 senses is filtered through our fear center first. Our fear center is 4 times faster than our executive functioning. So that means that anything that comes in, and then we have a little full-time secretary that works 24 hours a day in our brain that goes through all of our memories, all the way back from childhood. So if you hear a tone of voice, your brain's going to go, hold on, let me hold on with the information for a second. Oh yeah, hold on. That's how your father used to talk to you? No, we're not letting that happen. Shut the blood flow up to the prefrontal cortex. You don't need to think about this. You just need to freeze, fight, or flight. This is for physical and emotional. This is where the problem comes in. Then the blood flow gets cut off from our prefrontal cortex and we're not thinking. We're not thoughtfully responding. We're reacting like this. Have you ever been in a situation where somebody says something, somebody gives you a look, there's a tone, and your brain automatically puts up, this is metaphorical, right? But maybe you actually do this too. Some people do. Some people live in their fear center their entire lives. And all we need is the awareness of this, the pause in between what's happening and our response, to choose our response, to choose love in our response. So, back at the funeral, because I went off way on a tangent, I asked everybody to start thinking about what they think about. And I said, I want you to choose one loving thought over an angry thought every day. Do that once a day for me. Because everybody's been asking, what can we do for you? What can we do to help solve this issue? I said, start there. Choose a loving thought over an angry thought. That is going to determine how you feel. You know, I go around to schools all over and I ask the little kids, hey, what are you thinking about right now? And they'll go, I'm thinking about my grandma. And I'm like, how does that make you feel? Good. What are you thinking about? Well, I'm thinking about my cat that died last week. How does that make you feel? Very sad. Our thoughts impact how we feel, which then determines how we behave and show up in relationships. The problem with us is that there was research done, and the vast majority of us can only label 3 emotions out of 2,000. That's called emotional intelligence. But so you probably are asking, well, so? Well, if you can't talk about how you feel, how do you express it? In your behavior. So when you see somebody acting irrationally, when you see somebody angry, when you see somebody that's misbehaving, that's just an expression of how they're feeling. So, I asked everybody to choose a loving thought over an angry thought. It said it'll positively impact how you feel, which will then relate to your behavior. And through the ripple effect, you will make this a more peaceful and loving world. So everybody goes out to the four corners of the United States, and I started getting emails, texts, calls about a week later saying that one simple act had completely changed people's lives. I was shocked. My dad's best friend is a medical doctor in the Midwest, and he wrote my dad an email that he forwarded me and said, David, I never knew that I was angry my entire life. I have been changing angry thoughts into loving thoughts. I'm having my patients do that. I'm having my staff do that. This is life-changing. And so that is, by the way, the foundational concept for the Choose Love movement. It's not rocket science. It's very simple. But it does include self-awareness of what we're thinking, what we're feeling, and how that interprets into our behavior. So, I came back to my house after the tragedy. I have this little farmhouse that I've lived in for 24 years, I think, where I raised my two boys as a single mom. And I found a message that Jesse had written on our kitchen chalkboard shortly before he died. He wrote 3 words: nurturing, healing, love. Phonetically spelled, because he was in first grade and just learning how to write, but I was floored because I realized this is the solution. This is the solution. If Adam Lanza had been able to give and receive nurturing, healing love, if he had felt good about himself, the tragedy would never have happened. It's so simple. People that feel good about themselves, they don't want to harm themselves, and they don't want to harm other people. And I thought, wow, okay, this is it. I felt like Jesse had literally handed me a baton. He had finished his race, and it was up to me to pick up that baton and finish it by spreading this incredibly powerful, profound, prolific message of nurturing, healing love. It changed my life in the moment. So I took that message and I went to a doctoral professor and I said, I know that it's my purpose in life to spread this message, to amplify it in schools. How do I do that? What's an idea? And he said, it's called social and emotional learning. And go look it up, go research it. And I realized when I did that I didn't have these skills and tools. I didn't really know how to have healthy, meaningful, positive relationships. I didn't know how to manage my emotions. I really didn't know how to self-regulate. I didn't know, for the most part, or some part, how to make responsible decisions. I didn't know any of this about my thoughts. I didn't know these essential life skills because I wasn't born with them, and no one is. So how do we learn them? Oh, we learn them from our parents, of course. Best case scenario, our parents are teaching this every day. But if you don't have them yourself, you can't teach them. I loved my boys. That's one thing that I will not regret. I was present in the moment with them every day. Thankfully, it was before screens. We didn't have a TV. We played games. I read books. And that is the way, by the way, to live your life with the fewest regrets. That is being present in the moment with the ones you love. You will never regret that. This is living somebody else's life. This is giving our kids the message that they're number 2, not number 1. So, Anyway, I was present with my kids, thankfully, and wanting to be part of the solution, for sure. I mean, I quit my job. I couldn't go back to doing what I did. I knew that I had to be part of the solution. I knew that what was happening in our schools was 100% preventable, and I needed to be part of the solution. And Jesse had directed me towards that. Now, what I didn't mention is that when the shooter came into the building and made a left, murdered Jesse's principal and guidance counselor as they came out of a meeting across the hall from where Jesse's classroom was to find out what the commotion was, and then he made a left into Jesse's classroom. After a few shots, his gun actually ran out of bullets. And during the short delay, Jesse stood up to him and called out for his classmates to run. 9 of his classmates ran, and Jesse is credited with saving their lives. So unfortunately, the gunman reloaded after that, murdered everyone in that classroom, went to the next classroom and did the same until he heard sirens approaching, and then he killed himself. But it is that courage. Wow, when I learned about that, I thought, wow, if Jesse could do that at 6 years old, then I definitely can have the courage to quit my job. That's a big deal when you're a single mom and you're living month to month. Quit my job and start a movement that can change the direction that we're headed in. You know, a lot of times when there is a school shooting, the media reaches out to me and I get the same questions. Why is this happening? And I say, well, our kids are very angry. And the media says, but why are they angry? And I say, well, there's a lot of reasons that they're angry, but it all boils down to pain. They're in a lot of pain. And here's the thing, we're all connected as human beings in the want and need to love and be loved. Every single human being is born with that need. And we actually know through unfortunate research that babies die when they don't get it. And we need it all the way up through our death. When we don't have love, connection, and belonging, we suffer. We all also feel pain. It is a human condition. We're going to feel pain physically, mentally, and emotionally throughout life. We know this. We don't want to feel pain, and we certainly don't want our kids to feel pain, but they're going to. And so it is up to us, it is our responsibility to fortify them with the skills and tools that they need to manage that pain. Because here's the interesting thing about pain. Pain has a purpose in our lives. It doesn't just happen to distress us. It actually is there to help us grow. That's how we're designed as human beings, to learn from, grow through, and be strengthened by pain. There's actually a scientific term for it that I didn't know until I started researching this, and it's called post-traumatic growth. Now, I'm sure the vast majority of you have heard of PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. There's probably nobody here that hasn't heard of that. But here's the interesting thing. When you look at the research behind PTSD, you'll find, before COVID, by the way, there aren't numbers yet for after, but 7% of the population would suffer from PTSD at one point in their life. But here's the interesting thing about post-traumatic growth. The vast majority of us experience post-traumatic growth. We grow through difficulty. Think about it. I'm sure that you can reach back in your past, think about something, a traumatic time, and document how you've grown from it. Now, imagine kids learning this in school. Guess what, kids? Pain has a purpose. You're going to feel pain. physically, mentally, and emotionally. And it's there to help you grow. So rather than resist and avoid it, or maybe numb yourself, have the courage to face it, to get curious, to ask, I wonder what this is trying to teach me. I wonder how I'm going to grow through this. I wonder how this is going to strengthen me. Because I think of myself at the firehouse. I don't know if you all saw the coverage after the tragedy, but the families waited at the firehouse for almost all day to get the news. And during that time, of course, I thought, and what does your brain do? It goes straight to the negative. Fear, 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 worst case scenario. And I thought, oh God, if this doesn't work out, I'm definitely going to be having PTSD. Of course I would think that. That's the only thing I knew. Our brains focus on the negative and what can harm us. That's where the majority of the research is done, by the way, too. So I'm definitely going to be having PTSD, and I'll probably be institutionalized, is what I thought. And I wonder who's going to take care of my 12-year-old son, because I was a single mom. Now, if I had been aware of post-traumatic growth, it might have changed my thinking to, I wonder how this is going to help me grow. But do you see, you're already, a little bit of the fear has dissipated. And let me tell you something, we know that fear exacerbates pain, physically, mentally, and emotionally. Choosing love over fear. I think that's why we're here on Earth. We were having a conversation about this earlier. So, I started creating a program for kids to teach them what I had learned. Because best case scenario, you learn this at home. But I loved my kids, and I didn't have these skills and tools. My parents are great parents. They didn't have it either to give to me. I didn't learn these skills and tools at school. I didn't learn them in a lifetime of working. So I was just learning them, researching a solution to what's happening in our society. So I created a program based on nurturing, healing, love, and I looked at the definitions, and I created a formula, and you all are going to take this formula home with you today as a skill and tool in your belt. You're going to be able to use it, it's very simple, to be able to face anything in your life. You can take it and you can look back at anything that has ever happened to you, and it can help you choose love as a thoughtful response. It's the strongest response that we can have in any situation. It is not what our brains would have us do, actually. Our brains just want to protect us. They want to defend us. So in bullying situation, bullying is a big problem these days. But in the Choose Love movement, we don't use the word bully because we know that every person that is behaving in an aggressive way is coming from a point of pain. I got curious after Sandy Hook, and I thought, wow, I wonder what happened in Adam Lanza's life, the school shooter. And I'm sure that you can anticipate what I'm going to say. He was neglected, most likely abused, bullied. By the way, you won't read that in any report, but kids that went to school with him tell me that they witnessed it themselves. He had a single mom that was doing the best she could with the skills and tools that she had at the time. She went through a very similar situation of bringing her child to school in kindergarten and trying to get him help that he was denied. But I had the same thing happen to me with my son following severe trauma in his young age. He was also tested, needed special services, was denied. So it was hard for me to sit there and blame Nancy Lanza because I had compassion for her. I realized that she had done the best she could with the skills and tools that she had. And by the way, for whatever mistakes that she made, and she made mistakes, he killed her that morning before he went to the school. So she certainly paid for them. And I realized, it's not enough to sit and blame other people for what's going on in our world. It's not enough to rail against people who won't pass laws. It's not enough to look for pills that'll make us feel better. We actually have to take responsibility ourselves for what is going on in our world. We have to do something, and this is it. Parents tell me, I'm terrified. What am I going to do? I'm afraid. Every time I send my kid off to school, I think it might be the last time. Kids come to me. I just had a 3rd grade class do a project on school safety and how to keep themselves safe. Kids are losing confidence in us, in our ability to keep them safe. And I say, the opposite of anxiety, the anxiety that we're all feeling, is positive action. It's taking action. It's taking that one step forward in the direction that you want to go. That is the opposite of anxiety. That's the only way, that's the positive way to reduce it. So in other words, I tell parents, call the school. Ask them if they have an essential life skills program that teaches kids how to manage their pain. If you look at the pathway to violence as per the Department of Homeland Security, and you can Google this, it starts with a grievance. It escalates, stair steps up through ideation, preparation, these different levels, all the way to an attack. Now, we know how we think. We focus on the negative and we're reactive. So which part of this pathway to violence do you think that we would focus on? The attack end. Of course, we harden schools. It's become a $1 billion industry. And by the way, I'm not knocking it because I think we need to harden schools. However, I looked, no one was focused on the grievance end. Nobody had addressed the grievance end, giving kids the skills and tools they needed to manage the grievance before it escalated into an attack. Proactive prevention, instead of the way that our brains would react as focusing on the negative. If you look at some things that we've tried to do in the past, anti-bullying. Now I know there's some good anti-bullying programs and it's mostly the teacher that teaches them. Anti-bullying, a double negative. Even the anti-gun movement. What has that created in the last 10 years? I mean, I'm just saying because I realized the polarization of our country 10 years ago, pro and anti-gun, and I thought, whoa, that's not going to solve this situation. I got to create a movement where everybody can come together in what we have in common, and that's the want and need to love and be loved, and let's figure out how to choose that in our lives. Because in the last 10 years, the amount of guns has increased. The amount of violence has escalated all over the country. What you focus on grows. And we focus on the negative. We focus on the problems. We have to shift that focus. Yeah, there are fires we have to burn out, to put out. I totally agree. We have to shift. We have to bring some of our resources, and I say a quarter. That's time, energy, and money to address the root cause of the pain that escalates not only into school violence, but into substance abuse, mental illness, and all of the issues that we're seeing. Address the root cause. We can reduce and prevent the suffering before it starts. And definitely before it gets to a young person being so in pain that the only way out is to take out as many people, classmates, as they can and then kill themselves. And by the way, I speak to school shooters. I spoke to Nicholas Cruz, the Parkland shooter, who was just on trial. I've had a school shooter in my book club. I've had one on my podcast. Who better to ask? And I ask the question nobody's asking them. How did we fail you? Yeah, you're responsible. You're responsible for what you did. Thank you. Yeah. I'm not taking the responsibility away from them at all. They're responsible. Nicholas Cruz should never see the outside of a jail cell. But we failed him because he wasn't born a mass shooter. He was cultivated into what he became. By what? By lack of skills and tools, by pain, by not being able to manage that pain. Where did it start? A thought. Because really, if you give kids these skills and tools, they can grow through pain. They can take it and grow through it. And by the way, I think the reason we're here is to take our pain, face it, learn from it, grow through it, and be strengthened by it, and then use it to help other people. That's why we're here, choosing love over fear. So I want to give you this formula. So it starts with courage. This is what we teach, by the way. And people go, well, gosh, Scarlett, you run around and you talk to kindergarten classes. You talk at universities. You talk to corporations. You talk in prisons. How do you keep it all straight? And I say, because it's the exact same message. It's a universal language of humanity. Starts with courage. Courage is like a muscle. This is what science says. We have to practice it to strengthen it. And we all have the capacity for the courage that Jesse showed. Jesse's a 6-year-old little boy. We all have the capacity for that. And I don't mean facing a shooter. Hopefully none of us will ever do that. I'm talking about being kind when somebody's not being kind to us. That takes courage. And by the way, it's not just kids. It's big kids too. How about doing the right thing instead of what's just easy? How about telling the truth? All this takes courage every single day. I say life is this beautiful thing as it gives us the opportunity to practice choosing love every single day. Then nurturing means loving kindness and gratitude. Practicing gratitude. And we use gratitude as the great mind shifter. You've heard of gratitude. I know gratitude. I have my gratitude list. But did you know that you can't have 2 thoughts at once? It's impossible. Just like multitasking, by the way. But you can't have 2 thoughts at once. That means you can't have an angry, hateful, resentful, frustrated thought and a grateful thought at once. Now, all those thoughts are okay to have. Every thought we think is okay. Every feeling we have is okay. But when you're ready to shift out of it and take control, think of something you're grateful for and then continue to do that. That strengthens you to consider forgiveness. Forgiveness is probably the most important thing that I've done in my healing journey. And that is the 3rd character value in the formula for choosing love. Healing literally means forgiveness. And people have come up to me and said, there are things that you forgive and things that you don't forgive. And this is something you don't forgive. But you know what? I didn't forgive for anyone else but myself. And if you look at the decades of research on the power of forgiveness, number 1 is healthier relationships. Harvard University did a study called the Grant Study, longest study ever on human life. I think they're 85 years into the study right now, and they found the secret to happiness. Anybody interested? Healthy relationships. Healthy relationships. We're not born with the skills and tools to have healthy relationships, by the way. We have to learn them. And there are many ways to learn them. Best case scenario, if you learn it from your parents, that's fantastic. We know that we have to reinforce and practice it at school because these skills and tools we practice every single day. And if you didn't learn it from your parents, school's the only place you're probably going to be getting this. And it's really important. Forgiveness is so important. Forgiveness is not a gift that you give the other person. It's a gift that you give yourself. It's cutting the cord that attaches you to pain. It does not mean forgetting. I'm never going to forget what happened. It does not mean condoning. I do not condone what happened at Sandy Hook. It simply means taking your personal power back. It means freedom from the person that hurt you. It means Adam Lanza from his grave has no control over my thoughts that impact how I feel, that then impact how I show up in my relationships. Forgiveness is so important and the key to healthy relationships, which is the key to happiness. See how this all is coming together? And then the 4th character value, and then I'm going to wrap up and ask for questions, is compassion in action. Compassion has two components. There's the identification of a need within yourself or someone else, and then there's the action component. Literally taking action to help ease that need. Did you know that you're responsible for your own happiness? Did anybody ever tell you that? And did you know that happiness is hard work? You got to work at it every day? Well, that's an important lesson to teach somebody, to take personal responsibility for your own happiness and to not look outside you for that. But I will tell you that outward focus is so important. It's the key to overcoming loneliness. And I'm sure you all realize if we had a pandemic of COVID, and there's no word that goes above pandemic, we have a super, super, super pandemic of loneliness, of anxiety, of mental illness right now. How do you get over that? Compassion, outward focus, getting out of your own head, having the courage to step outside of your own busyness, distraction, pain, and suffering to help somebody else. Because here's the research on this. When you do that, you help and heal yourself. It's the number one thing you can do. So I'm going to wrap it up with the formula. Practicing your courage every single day. You can do that we do brave breaths, breathing in through your nose, out through your nose. We're nose breathers, by the way, as humans. Practicing courage, changing that angry thought for a grateful, loving thought that I asked the congregation to do, to think about what you think about, to be aware. How can we even know if we want to change or how to change if we're not aware of what we're thinking right now? Forgiving. And it's not easy. I'm not saying this is easy. It's not. It's effort. But it's well worth it. Anything that takes effort is well worth it. This is what's going to heal our world. It's not going to be a law. It's not going to be a pill. It's going to be all of us coming together, having the courage to step outside of ourselves and help each other. Compassion in action. That is choosing love. That love that we all want and need, that we suffer without, it's actually a choice. So thank you for being here and listening to the message and choosing love. We have time.
Yeah. Will you say it after? Or
Yeah.
I'll say it after.
You say it after. Okay. So if anybody has questions, comments, please. Oh, I have somebody right here, and you can ask me anything. You're not going to hurt my feelings. Hi, sir.
Yes. My son was murdered.
I'm sorry.
And I can't forgive the guy. He was an illegal marijuana grower, very wealthy. He came to the school playground and accused the teenage boys of stealing the marijuana. And he shot them. He's out of jail, has an estate overlooking the Pacific Ocean. He has younger siblings in the community that he's with. But I can't forgive him. The therapist told me I should go to jail and shake his hand and say, forgive him. But the only thing that worked for me was to go to a grief group with other parents that had lost children. So, you know, I guess, you know, he's wealthy, you know, he had good defense. Actually, the DA was only going to file accidental death against him because he was so wealthy, you know. And then I was told by the other boy's father, who survived, who happened to be the county coroner, you need to go to the DA, and not your son, and so on. The DA told me, well, thank you for coming in. I didn't know he was a college professor's son. I just thought he was a Mexican. And then they did up the charge. But it was a harrowing experience. When the younger siblings were grown, my wife took a bunch of sleeping pills. So, it's not a good thing. And sometimes the people that do things aren't, quote, necessarily,
In pain.
So, am I evil for not forgiving him for that?
100% no. Not at all. Absolutely not. And forgiveness looks different for different people, and it is a process. But I'll tell you what it gave me. Forgiveness gave me freedom from the person who murdered Jesse. And let me just, we actually have this as a lesson in one of our, I think of the middle and high school grade level. And I was talking to some at-risk kids, and I was talking about forgiveness, and they said, well, show us what it looked like. And I said, okay. I felt like I was attached to the shooter by an umbilical cord, and it ran out of my side into the side of the shooter. All my anger flowed out of me into, and my personal power, by the way, along with it, through the cord into the shooter, and I dragged him around with me everywhere because we were attached. He had control over my thoughts that affected how I felt, that affected how I showed up in my relationship with my son and my family. And I didn't want to allow that person who took my son's life to have any power over my life. I did not want to be another victim. I refused. But the only way in the last 10 years that I know how to take my personal power back is through that figurative cutting of the cord. I pictured a big set of scissors. And it was a choice. It starts with a choice. Then it becomes a process. I took those scissors, I cut that cord that attached me to pain. And you know what? Just making the choice, even though I didn't 100% believe it at the time, like I'm gonna do this because I am not gonna be another victim. I'm not gonna live my life in anger. He is not going to control one of my thoughts. I cut the cord, all my personal power ran back to me. It felt so good. But even now, Mother's Day, my birthday, Jesse's birthday, Christmas, because it was 2 weeks after the shooting. All of these days, Valentine's Day, they come up, and I get that pain. And I take a step back, I take a deep breath, and I forgive again. And I'm not forgiving for Adam. I'm forgiving for me. I get the benefit. And if you don't, that's fine. That's fine too. But what I'm saying is it's the only way that I knew to not allow the shooter to have any control over me. And I wanted to model that for my surviving son too, who was 12 years old at the time. And he was watching me, every word out of my mouth. But you know, our communication is mostly facial expression, gesticulation, what you say, what you do. And I knew everything that I was doing impacted how JT was going to move through the world, how he was going to handle any kind of pain, any kind of adversity in his life. And I wanted to model for him how to move through that in his own personal power, not being another victim of Adam. You know what I mean? Not living in pain, not living in anger. I wanted, quickly, a woman came in right after Jesse's murder. She's the only person I'd ever met that had had a son who was murdered. I'd never met anybody before. And I was still on my mom's couch, still completely destroyed. And I'm seeing her and I'm like, oh, she survived. That's how bad the pain was. I thought I was gonna dissolve. And I'm like, she's alive 10 years later, wow. And I said, how did you live? And she tells me this. She starts telling me how her life is like. And I say, thank you so much for coming, but stop right there. Because that's your life, that's not going to be my life. And I realized right then and there is no roadmap. Nobody's going to give me a roadmap and say, okay, this is what you do after this. No, it's a blank slate. I get to create what I want, my life, my way. It's up to me. And I'm going to have joy. In fact, Jesse left a note for his bigger brother. For JT, who's 6 years older than Jesse. When we came home, I found the Nurturing, Healing, Love message on the chalkboard. JT went into his room, his bedroom, and he found this little note that was folded up on his desk. And Jesse had left a note that said, have a lot of fun. And I thought, that's what we're going to do. That's what my roadmap is going to look like. It doesn't mean that I don't cry every day. I do. I have pain. I cry every day. I cried this morning. But I come back up. I bounce off.
The two younger siblings, both of them went to college. The girl is a multi-millionaire now. The boy went to an Ivy League school and is doing well in his career. So I'm thankful that we were able to bring them up and do that. But it's still, it's still with them too.
You live with it. And then I believe that you use, I mean, we're in the hall of philosophy, right? You use what you've learned to help make the world a better place. I think that's our responsibility, because we've been through that. It's changed us forever, and we're given this responsibility.
One of my girls' children, she's just starting medical school.
That's amazing.
So I guess it's, it's troublesome, but you just try to work through it.
It's less troublesome if you can choose to forgive. For me.
I can't.
Well, I think the first 6 months of my story is in my book, Nurturing, Healing, Love. Maybe reading that, maybe seeing the tremendous signs that Jesse gave me will help you as well.
Should I go to his estate and knock on his door?
I think you need to go through the act of forgiveness yourself. And see, you don't have to go to another state and knock on anybody's door. You don't have to ever talk to the person who hurt you again. That is not a necessary thing, ever. It's for you. You're not doing it for them. They don't have to know. It's for you. You don't have to do that. If your journey takes you there, that's okay. But if it doesn't, that's fine too.
Thank you, sir. We're going to move on.
Thank you. We have a couple minutes.
No, I know. Okay. There might be people for.
Yeah.
Ms. Lewis, thank you very much for a fantastic lesson of social intelligence that you have given to us all here. Social intelligence, not on the sense of individualism, but of communalism.
Yes.
As an African, I can really, you have no idea how much I can relate to you. Because the fundamental and African culture is Ubuntu. I am because you are. If you not, I'm not. I am because you are. And like you said, see, we're all angry every day. That's absolutely normal. It's a defense mechanism for our system.
Anger is based on pain.
But that has a shock absorbent. And African culture has evolved enough to understand that the society is the shock absorbent of that anger. If you talk to the person, if that young man who that made that horrible action had someone, 2 or 3 people in that morning, come to him in the morning and say, how are you doing? How was your night? Be friendly with him. It is unlikely, or at least he may have reduced the anger that brought him to where he went to.
That's exactly
to that
right.
absolutely point. And I remember Michael Moore, when he did an interview with, bowling with Columbine, he asked this artist, with all his tattoos and all of that stuff, what should I have? Michael asked him, what could somebody tell that person, that could keep them from doing that murder? He said, no, you don't have to say anything more. Sit to listen to them. If there was people who listened to them that day, most likely these people, their anger would have been expressed already and out there. And it wouldn't happen.
That's from what I've learned from actual school shooters. Being seen. They don't feel seen. They don't even know if anybody would remember that they had been in a room. They're not seen. We crave being acknowledged as human beings.
Absolutely. And this is, in my culture, we said the best remedy for another person is another person. And it really reminded me when you said the pills won't do it. The pills will not solve it, because the anger cannot be solved by pills. It's the society, the community, not letting people talk to people. Go say good morning to the neighborhood.
Yes. Look at each other in the eye. Smile.
Exactly.
Not this.
No,
we need each other. We have mirror neurons. We need one another. We are made for interaction. And anger never happens in a vacuum. There's always something underlying it, and it's usually pain.
And I have to say that I'm blessed to be here to hear you. I'm blessed to be here in Chautauqua, because it's unbelievable. I was telling to that gentleman there that in this place, people are eager to help, eager to assist you.
Yes.
When we first arrived, me and my wife, this person came from nowhere. Oh, I see you looking at your map. Dear, I want to help you. Can I help you? If we did that for everyone, say hello to people. Say hello. And Chautauqua, if people behave like the way they behave in Chautauqua, there won't be any war. I can tell you that. As a political scientist.
I totally agree. But you know what? That takes self-confidence, and Americans lack that. This is just a study. I'm not saying it. 85% lack self-esteem. And actually, I never realized how much self-esteem it takes to say hello to someone, to approach someone and say, can I help you? And we need to feel good. And then if you gave a look to me and my brain wants to do this, but instead if I would pause and I would get curious and wonder why you were unkind and what I could possibly do for you, that would change everything. That's what we're trying to teach kids.
This is really, and the last but not least, I wanted to say that I can totally understand when people did not understand when there were 28 people who were killed. Because you were looking at a structural cause, fundamental, what exactly was the cause. You were not reacting to the symptom of that cause. Most people are only capable of reacting to the symptom of a cause, like if you have a headache, take something to take it. You don't try to see exactly what is the cause of this headache.
That's right.
So absolutely, it's normal. People don't, 99% of the people don't look at things from an illness, whether it is an individual or social, from the structural, from the structural cause of it. They just look at to try to address the symptom because it's a normal human being.
Addressing the symptoms, looking at that attack end of the pathway to violence instead of focusing on the grievance end and reducing the pain before it escalates. That's the number one way to have a safe school that we haven't thought about, that we haven't focused on. That's why I'm so happy to get this message out. Tell people it's the number one way to have a safe school is focusing on that grievance and giving them the skills and tools they need to manage that grievance before it escalates. We need to do both, but we need to start focusing on that other end. Thank you.
You should, because you will
Sorry.
If you don't mind.
I would never challenge you on the need for love, but I'm interested in this problem being solved sooner than your message will allow it. You've avoided, I'm curious, I'd like to ask the question, I'm curious how effective your message has been with the NRA. After all, they want their guns to protect themselves, that's fear. Where's the love amongst those people, the Second Amendment people who insist that we have guns in this community? Where's your message of love? But good luck with social media, with video games that make it fun to shoot teachers. The cinema, which glorifies guns. So
That's true. There are a lot of things working against us.
I would never argue, but it's not going to solve the problem soon enough. So we have to direct the way kids are being killed, which is with guns. And I would urge people to become active in that, as well as, I'll never argue the message of love.
Well, that's why I was part of the Remington lawsuit, and that wasn't actually anti-gun. It was about the marketing of the gun maker to kids for guns. They put their guns into video games so that then the kids would grow up and buy them. And the whole point, of that lawsuit, which has been taken by both sides and twisted so nobody knows what it was really about, but it was really about marketing and responsible marketing to our kids, responsible messaging to our kids. We have to be held accountable for the messaging that we give our kids. So true.
Thank you for your work.
Oh, and let me just say one more thing. This program now that's free, it's on our website, chooselovemovement.org. It's now in over 11,500 schools. It's in 120 countries. That has spread by word of mouth and referral only. We do not call out. We only take calls in. And so it is spreading. You're saying not soon enough, but I will challenge that. It's not working what we're doing. And I highly doubt you're going to take everybody's guns. So, and that's a polarizing issue. The issue that I wanted to talk about was love, because that's somewhere that we can all meet in the middle, and everyone can be a part of the movement and be part of the solution. Everyone can do it. And you can walk away and take this message and spread it in your own communities. You can bring it into your homes. You can help me on social media. Like and share, even though I'm trying to get people off the phone, and I say that.
Have you run into any resistance or pushback when you talk about social emotional learning? I'm concerned about that.
Sure, and thank you for that. And that's a really good question. So interesting. Social emotional learning is 5 core components, and this is decades of research on these 5 core components. They are responsible decision-making, emotional management, relationship skills. Just because I'm up in front of everybody, there are 2 more. It has nothing to do with diversity, equity, and inclusion, and social justice. The reason...
Or book banning.
No, it has nothing to do with book banning. But there is a reason why people are getting upset with social and emotional learning. It's because CASEL, Collaborative for Academic Social Emotional Learning, a couple years ago changed the definition to transformative SEL, and they included those words, DEI and social justice. And so they had no basis for doing that. There's no research on that. They just did it. And I was very upset with them for doing it because I knew that it would take it out of the hands of kids. And so, yes, we do get pushback. Interestingly enough, mostly not, but very little. And here's what I say. We're totally an open book. Everything that we have is online. So it's chooselovemovement.org. You can go on and comb through everything that we have. As a parent, I think parents should know what their kids are being taught. I think they should be very comfortable with it. I think that they should be backing it up at home. And so that's why we have a corresponding home program. So yes, and actually we align with character.org's standards, and they're the 5 core components of social emotional learning, and I'll get those for you, and character. And so, and we include positive psychology, neuroscience, post-traumatic growth, resilience, mindset, I synthesized the best of the best and put it into one program, made it free to make everybody sweat, actually. Because I thought, we're not doing a good enough job, so compete with me, because our kids deserve the best of the best. And actually, I created Choose Love to be a gap filler. I thought, wow, this must be out everywhere because it's so powerful. So I'll just create a program. My son was priced out of the market, by the way, of this type of programming. And so I thought, no child, and that means Adam Lanza was too, no child should not have these skills and tools. I mean, there's so much research. Kids get better grades and test scores, higher attendance, higher graduation rates, less stress and anxiety, less mental illness, and by the way, less behavioral issues. Is a statistically effective way to reduce and prevent bullying. And then later in life, so decades later, these now young adults have less mental illness, less incarceration, less stress and anxiety, even less divorce rates. And that's where I joke and say, see, I could have benefited from it. It's like there's so much research, but the research does not extend to DEI and social justice. And people are, well, Castle put those things together, and that was very unfortunate. And so, yeah, it's essential life skills is what it is. But I do still say social emotional learning because a lot of schools still look for that type of learning.